You wake up in the middle of the night with that familiar weight pressing on your chest, and in the darkness, you know exactly what it is. It is the relationship that drains you, the job that suffocates your spirit, the friendship that feels more like an obligation than a connection, the family pattern that keeps repeating despite your best efforts to break free. And yet, when morning comes, you will show up again. You will answer the call, respond to the text, stay another year, give another chance. Not because you want to, not because it nourishes you or helps you grow, but because to do otherwise would make you, in your own estimation, disloyal, a betrayer, someone who gives up on people. You have told yourself for so long that loyalty is one of your core values, one of the things that makes you good, that makes you trustworthy, that proves your character. And so you stay. You endure. You sacrifice pieces of yourself on the altar of this virtue you have elevated above all others. But here is what you have not yet fully grasped, what keeps you locked in this pattern. The loyalty you are practicing has nothing to do with genuine commitment and everything to do with fear. It is not loyalty that keeps you there. It is the terror of being seen as someone who abandons, who walks away, who puts their own needs first. It is the childhood wound that taught you that love is conditional on your ability to endure, to serve, to never require too much. And the question we must sit with today, the question that may unsettle everything you think you know about virtue and commitment, is this: what if the loyalty that feels so noble is actually the mechanism of your own imprisonment? What if staying is not always the righteous choice? What if the person you are most betraying through your unwavering loyalty to others is yourself? Let us begin by examining what we mean when we speak of loyalty. In its purest form, loyalty is a beautiful thing. It is the steadiness that allows relationships to weather storms, the commitment that says, "I will not abandon you when things become difficult," the fidelity that creates safety and trust. But like any virtue taken to its extreme, loyalty can become perverted into something else entirely. It can become a prison we build for ourselves, a set of invisible chains we wear with pride, believing they demonstrate our character, when in fact they demonstrate our fear. Hannah Arendt, in her examination of the human condition, wrote extensively about the life of the mind, about the necessity of thinking and the dangers that emerge when we cease to examine our own motives and beliefs. She understood that evil often does not arrive in the form of monsters, but in the form of thoughtlessness, the banality of following rules and obligations without ever pausing to ask whether those rules serve life or diminish it. And while Arendt was writing about the political realm, her insights apply with devastating accuracy to our personal lives, to the ways we trap ourselves through unexamined loyalty. Consider for a moment the relationship you remain in, despite knowing it no longer serves you. Perhaps it is a romantic partnership where affection died years ago, where you go through the motions of connection while feeling profoundly alone. Perhaps it is a friendship that has become one-sided, where you are always the one listening, supporting, showing up, while receiving little in return. Perhaps it is loyalty to a family member whose treatment of you ranges from neglectful to actively harmful, yet you continue to engage because they are blood, because you were taught that family is forever, because to establish boundaries would be to commit the unforgivable sin of disloyalty. Notice what happens in your body as you think about these situations. There is the weight, yes, the exhaustion, but there is also something else. There is guilt. The moment you even consider the possibility of leaving, of saying no, of putting your own well-being first, you feel it. That sharp twist in your stomach, that voice in your head that says, "But you cannot just abandon them." What kind of person would that make you? Who will they have if not you? You have invested so much already, suffered so much already. Surely you can endure a little more. This is where we must pause and examine the architecture of this trap, because it is ingenious in its construction. The trap works precisely because it appeals to your best qualities, to your capacity for commitment, for perseverance, for caring about others. It takes what is beautiful in you and weaponizes it against you. And here is the crucial insight. True loyalty, the kind that nourishes both people in a relationship, is always mutual. It flows in both directions. It is a dance where both partners are invested in each other's well-being, where commitment is matched with care, where staying is a choice made from love rather than from fear of leaving. But the loyalty that has become a trap is never mutual. It is always unbalanced. You are loyal to someone or something that is not loyal to you in return. You give and give and give, and what you receive in return is breadcrumbs or worse, active harm disguised as need. The person you remain loyal to may cry that they cannot live without you, may threaten collapse if you leave, may make you feel responsible for their well-being, but they show no equivalent concern for yours. The job demands your evenings and weekends, your health and your peace of mind, but offers no loyalty in return. You are disposable the moment you are no longer useful. The family insists you show up for every gathering, every obligation, every crisis, but shows no interest in who you actually are, what you actually need, whether you are actually okay. And yet you stay, because somewhere deep in your psyche, you learned that your value is determined by your usefulness, your willingness to sacrifice, your capacity to endure. You learned that love is something you must earn through loyalty, through service, through never asking for too much. Perhaps you learned this from a parent who was emotionally unavailable unless you were solving their problems, performing for their approval, meeting their needs. Perhaps you learned it from a culture that teaches women especially that their worth lies in their ability to nurture others even at the expense of themselves. Perhaps you learned it from a religion that glorifies suffering and martyrdom, that suggests there is something noble about sacrificing your own well-being for others. Whatever the source, the pattern is the same. You equate loyalty with virtue, and anything less than complete self-sacrifice with selfishness. But here is what Arendt understood, and what you must come to understand if you are to free yourself from this trap. Genuine virtue requires thought. It requires the examined life. It requires that we pause and ask ourselves not just what we are doing, but why we are doing it, and whether our actions serve life or diminish it. Loyalty that is unexamined, that operates automatically without question, is not virtue, it is thoughtlessness. And thoughtlessness, no matter how well-intentioned, inevitably leads to harm. In your case, the harm is self-inflicted. You harm yourself by remaining where you are not valued, where you are not cherished, where your presence is taken for granted or actively exploited. You harm yourself by teaching others through your actions that they need not treat you well because you will stay regardless. You harm yourself by modeling for your children, if you have them, or for anyone who looks to you, that loyalty means enduring the unendurable, that commitment means abandoning yourself. Let us be very clear about something. Leaving is not always betrayal. Sometimes leaving is the most loyal thing you can do, the most honest, the most respectful of the truth of the situation. When a relationship has become toxic, when it is harming you, when it has ceased to be a relationship at all and has become instead a dynamic of use and exploitation, staying is not loyalty. Staying is collusion. You are colluding in your own diminishment. You are participating in a lie, the lie that says this arrangement is acceptable, that this is what relationship looks like, that this is the best you can expect or deserve. And the person or system you remain loyal to at such cost, they are not grateful for your loyalty. They do not value it. If they did, they would treat you differently. Instead, they have come to expect it, to rely on it, to take it for granted. Your loyalty has become the very foundation of a dynamic that serves them at your expense. If this perspective is opening something up for you, consider subscribing. I explore these territories every week, and I would love to have you along for the journey. There is a particular kind of suffering that comes from misplaced loyalty, and it is different from other forms of suffering. When we suffer because of circumstances beyond our control, when we grieve a loss or face a genuine hardship, there is often a clarity to that suffering. It is painful, yes, but it is honest. We know why we hurt, and we can direct our energy toward healing or acceptance. But the suffering that comes from misplaced loyalty is murkier, more confusing, because on the surface it appears noble. You are suffering for someone else. You are being loyal. You are demonstrating commitment. And so you do not give yourself permission to acknowledge the full weight of what it is costing you. You minimize your own pain. You tell yourself it is not that bad. You compare your situation to others who have it worse and shame yourself for feeling trapped. You search for ways to reframe the situation, to find the silver lining, to convince yourself that if you just adjust your attitude or try a different approach, everything will be fine. But beneath all of this self-deception, which is what it is, there is a deep and growing resentment. The resentment is inevitable. It is the natural response to self-abandonment. Every time you override your own boundaries, every time you say yes when everything in you is screaming no, every time you show up when you need to rest, every time you prioritize someone else's feelings over your own well-being, you create a small wound, and these wounds accumulate. They fester. The resentment grows not toward the person or situation demanding your loyalty, though that is often where you direct it, but toward yourself. You resent yourself for being weak, for being unable to leave, for being unable to set boundaries, for being the kind of person who gets taken advantage of. And this self-resentment is perhaps the cruelest aspect of the trap, because it keeps you locked in place. You believe you deserve this treatment because you have not had the strength to demand better. You believe you are too weak to survive on your own, too damaged, too broken, too much or not enough. And so you stay, and the resentment grows, and the weight becomes heavier. And the person you once were, the person who had dreams and desires and a sense of possibility, that person fades a little more each day. I know many of you watching this have never told anyone about this particular struggle. You have kept up appearances, smiled when you needed to smile, showed up when you needed to show up, and privately wondered if you were losing your mind. You have felt the loneliness of being surrounded by people who need you but do not see you, who demand your loyalty but offer none in return. And perhaps you have blamed yourself, thinking that if you were just more patient, more understanding, more evolved, you would not feel this way. But here is what I want you to understand. Feeling trapped by loyalty is not a personal failing. It is a sign that something is profoundly out of balance. So let me ask you directly, how long have you been carrying this weight? When did loyalty stop feeling like a choice and start feeling like a prison sentence? I want you to share in the comments below, not because I need engagement, but because someone else watching this needs to see your words. They need to know they are not weak, they are not ungrateful. They are not the only one questioning whether staying is really the righteous path. And if you cannot find the words right now, if it feels too exposing to articulate the full truth of your situation, just type this: I have been here too. That is it, just those 4 words. Because when you do, you create permission for others to speak their truth as well. Your honesty, your willingness to name what so many of us feel but rarely say out loud. It helps break the collective silence that keeps all of us trapped in these patterns. So, comment below. Tell me where you are in this. I read every single one, and I promise you, you are not alone in questioning whether the loyalty you have been practicing is really serving anyone, least of all you. Now we must turn to a more difficult question. If misplaced loyalty is a trap, how do we distinguish between loyalty that is genuine and loyalty that is fear-based? How do we know when to stay and when to leave? Because the fear, and this is a legitimate fear, is that if we start questioning our loyalty, we will become people who give up too easily, who run at the first sign of difficulty, who lack the commitment and perseverance required for any meaningful relationship or endeavor. This is the fear that keeps many of us frozen, unable to act even when every fiber of our being is telling us that something is wrong. We do not want to become that person, the one who is always leaving, always starting over, always blaming others for their dissatisfaction. And so we override our instincts and remain convincing ourselves that doubt itself is the problem, that if we could just quiet the voice in our head questioning whether we should be here, everything would be fine. But doubt is not the problem. Doubt is information. It is your psyche's way of drawing your attention to something that requires examination. And the examination must be honest, which means it must be willing to arrive at uncomfortable conclusions. So let us establish some criteria for distinguishing between genuine loyalty and loyalty that has become a trap. Genuine loyalty feels like a choice. Even when it is difficult, even when you must sacrifice or compromise, there is a fundamental sense that you are choosing this, that you want to be here, that the relationship or commitment matters enough to you, that you are willing to work through challenges. Loyalty that has become a trap feels like an obligation with no exit. You stay not because you want to, but because you feel you have to, because the alternative is unthinkable, because you have constructed your entire identity around being someone who does not give up. Genuine loyalty is reciprocal. The person or system you are loyal to demonstrates care for your well-being. They may not always get it right. They may sometimes be thoughtless or hurtful. But there is an underlying foundation of mutual respect and concern. When you express a need or a boundary, they take it seriously. They adjust their behavior. They show remorse when they have hurt you. They invest in the relationship the way you invest in it. Loyalty that has become a trap is one-sided. You are always the one adjusting, compromising, understanding, forgiving. The other person may offer words of appreciation, may tell you how much you mean to them, but their actions do not match their words. They continue to treat you in ways that diminish you, and when you point this out, they become defensive, or they promise to change and then do not, or they turn it around and make you the problem for being too sensitive, too demanding, too difficult to please. Genuine loyalty allows for growth and change. As you evolve, as your needs and values shift, the relationship or commitment can adapt. There is flexibility, room for renegotiation, space for both people to become more fully themselves. Loyalty that has become a trap requires you to stay small, to remain who you were when the relationship began, to suppress the ways you are changing and growing because change threatens the established dynamic. The other person needs you to stay in your assigned role, the supporter, the helper, the one who never needs anything in return. And if you start to require more, to express needs that were previously suppressed, to claim space for your own desires and boundaries, you are met with resistance or punishment or accusations of changing, of not being who you used to be, as if growth itself is a betrayal. Genuine loyalty feels life-giving even when it is challenging. There is a sense of meaning, of purpose, of contribution. You are tired sometimes, yes. Relationships and commitments require energy and effort, but you are not depleted. You are not running on empty. You do not dread the thought of another day, another conversation, another obligation. Loyalty that has become a trap is exhausting in a way that goes beyond normal tiredness. It is a bone-deep weariness, a sense that your life force is being drained, that you are becoming a shell of yourself. You wake up tired. You go to bed tired. And the tiredness is not just physical. It is emotional, spiritual. The exhaustion of constantly overriding your own needs and instincts, of forcing yourself to show up when everything in you wants to retreat. So what do you do with this information? How do you move from recognition to action? Because recognition alone, while necessary, is not sufficient. You can understand intellectually that your loyalty has become a trap and still remain stuck, still unable to leave or establish boundaries, still locked in the pattern. This is where we must bring in Arendt's concept of action, her understanding that thinking must lead to doing, if it is to have any meaning at all. The life of the mind matters, but it cannot remain only in the mind. It must enter the world, must manifest in choices and behaviors, must be willing to disrupt the established order even when disruption is uncomfortable. And here is where the real fear emerges, the fear that has been beneath all the other fears. What if you are wrong? What if you leave and realize you made a mistake? What if you establish boundaries and the relationship ends and you are left alone with the reality that you destroyed something that could have been saved? What if your loyalty was the only thing holding a fragile system together, and without it, everything falls apart? These are the thoughts that paralyze you in the middle of the night, that keep you locked in place despite your growing misery. And they are real fears, legitimate concerns that deserve acknowledgement. But they also reveal a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of relationship and commitment. A relationship that can only survive through your self-abandonment is not a relationship worth saving. A system that requires your silence about your own needs in order to function is not a healthy system. A dynamic where your boundaries would destroy everything is not a dynamic built on genuine connection, but on exploitation. You are not the glue holding it together through your loyalty. You are the sacrifice keeping a broken system alive. And what you must understand is that systems resist change. People invested in the current arrangement will resist your evolution, and they will use every tool at their disposal to keep you in place. They will appeal to your sense of loyalty, will remind you of all the history you share, will tell you that you are overreacting or being selfish, will threaten consequences if you persist in changing the terms of engagement. And this is precisely when you must hold firm, when you must remember that loyalty to yourself, to your own well-being and growth, is not selfishness. It is the foundation of any genuine relationship. Because here is what no one tells you about misplaced loyalty. It does not actually serve the other person. When you remain out of obligation rather than choice, when you give from depletion rather than overflow, what you offer is not authentic connection, but resentful endurance. The other person can feel this, even if they cannot name it. They can sense that you are not fully present, that you are going through the motions, that your loyalty is conditional on your inability to imagine an alternative rather than on genuine care. And this creates its own form of instability, its own anxiety. They know on some level that they do not have you, not really, they have your fear of leaving, which is not the same thing at all. A relationship built on one person's loyalty and the other person's exploitation is inherently unstable, inherently unsatisfying for both people, though the dissatisfaction manifests differently. When you finally begin to claim your life back, to establish boundaries, to say no, to prioritize your own well-being, you are not betraying anyone. You are actually offering something more valuable than continued self-sacrifice. You are offering the truth. You're offering the possibility of a real relationship, one based on mutual respect and genuine choice, rather than on fear and obligation. And yes, the other person may not want this. They may prefer the old arrangement, where you asked for nothing and gave everything. They may respond to your new boundaries with anger, with withdrawal, with attempts to manipulate you back into your former role. This is painful to witness and experience, but it is also clarifying. It shows you what the relationship actually was, which was not what you thought it was, what you needed it to be. Some relationships will not survive your growth. Some commitments will need to be released. Some loyalties will need to be redirected first and foremost to yourself. And this is not failure. This is not proof that you are a bad person or that your loyalty was worthless. It is proof that you have stopped betraying yourself. It is proof that you have begun to practice a different kind of loyalty. The loyalty that recognizes that you cannot pour from an empty cup, that you cannot love others well when you do not love yourself, that you cannot be genuinely present in relationships where your presence is taken for granted or actively exploited. There is a particular kind of freedom that comes when you finally release misplaced loyalty, and it is not the freedom of irresponsibility or selfishness that you feared it would be. It is the freedom of alignment, of integrity, of living in accordance with your actual values rather than performing values you think you should have. It is the freedom to choose your commitments consciously rather than defaulting to them out of fear. It is the freedom to say yes from a place of genuine desire and no from a place of genuine self-respect. And paradoxically, this freedom allows you to be more truly loyal in relationships that are mutual, more genuinely committed to endeavors that align with your values, more fully present in connections that nourish rather than deplete you. If what I am sharing here resonates with something you have been feeling, something you have been unable to name, or have been afraid to acknowledge, then I want you to know you are not alone in this. There are many of us who have had to learn this difficult lesson, who have had to distinguish between loyalty that serves life and loyalty that diminishes it, who have had to make the painful choice to prioritize our own well-being even when it felt like betrayal. I create these videos for people who are ready to look honestly at these patterns, who are not satisfied with surface answers or spiritual platitudes, who want to understand the deeper dynamics at play in their own lives. If that is you, consider subscribing, not because you need another channel to follow, but because this journey of understanding yourself, of waking up to the ways you have been betraying yourself in the name of loyalty to others, it helps to have companions along the way. People who will not offer you easy fixes, but will sit with you in the complexity of these questions. I will be here every week with another exploration, another perspective, another invitation to examine your life with honesty and compassion. And I would be honored to have you here as part of this community of people who are committed to living with greater awareness and integrity. So if this feels right, hit that subscribe button. And if you found value in this particular exploration, let me know in the comments what resonated most with you. Your reflections often illuminate aspects of these patterns that I had not fully considered. Let us return now to the question of how you actually change this pattern, because understanding is necessary, but not sufficient. You must move from recognition to action, and action in this context means doing things that terrify you. It means saying no when every part of you has been trained to say yes. It means disappointing people who have come to rely on your endless availability. It means tolerating the discomfort of their displeasure, their confusion, their attempts to guilt you back into your former role. And make no mistake, they will try. People who benefit from your misplaced loyalty will not readily accept your attempt to reclaim your life. They will test your boundaries, will probe for weakness, will escalate their demands or their need in an attempt to trigger your old patterns. This is where you must develop what Arendt might call the courage to think for yourself, to maintain your position even when everyone around you is telling you that you are wrong, that you are being selfish, that you are not the person they thought you were. And you are not. You are not the person they thought you were, because the person they thought you were was a role you were playing, a mask you were wearing, a version of yourself that prioritized their needs over your own well-being to the point of self-destruction. You are also not the person you thought you were, because you thought you were someone whose loyalty was unconditional and unshakable, and you are discovering that your loyalty has limits, as it should, as all healthy loyalty does. This process of discovering who you actually are beneath the layers of conditioning and obligation, this is the real work, and it requires you to sit with profound uncertainty, with the fear that maybe everyone is right and you are wrong, with the possibility that you are making a terrible mistake, with the guilt that arises every time you prioritize yourself. But here is what you will discover if you persist. The guilt is not your moral compass telling you that you are doing something wrong. The guilt is your conditioning protesting the disruption of familiar patterns. The guilt is the internalized voice of everyone who benefited from your self-sacrifice telling you to get back in line. The guilt is the echo of childhood messages about your worth being tied to your usefulness, your lovability being conditional on your compliance. And as you begin to recognize the guilt for what it is, as you begin to act despite the guilt, rather than being controlled by it, something remarkable happens. The guilt begins to lose its power. It does not disappear entirely, perhaps it never does completely, but it becomes quieter, less insistent, less capable of dictating your choices. And in the space where the guilt used to dominate, other feelings begin to emerge. Relief. A sense of breathing more deeply, of having more room inside yourself. Energy that was previously tied up in the exhausting work of self-abandonment becomes available for other things. Creativity returns. Curiosity returns. A sense of possibility that you had almost forgotten existed. You begin to notice that the catastrophic consequences you feared have not materialized. The people who truly care about you, they adjust to your new boundaries. They may be surprised, they may need time to understand, but ultimately they respect you more, not less, for claiming your life. And the people who cannot adjust, who insist that your boundaries are unacceptable, who withdraw or attack or punish you for no longer sacrificing yourself for their benefit, they reveal through their response exactly why your boundaries were necessary in the first place. This is perhaps the most painful revelation of all, that some of the people you were most loyal to, the ones you stayed for despite the cost, they were never actually there for you in return. They needed you to remain small, compliant, available, depleted. Your growth threatens them because it disrupts the arrangement that served their needs. And watching this dynamic play out, seeing clearly for perhaps the first time what the relationship actually was, this brings its own kind of grief. You grieve not just the relationship as it is ending, but the relationship you thought you had, the relationship you needed it to be, the fantasy of mutual care that kept you hoping that if you just stayed loyal enough, gave enough, endured enough, eventually it would be reciprocated. It will not be reciprocated. This is the hard truth you must finally accept. The relationship is what it is, and it has been what it is all along. And your loyalty has not changed that, will never change that, because transformation in relationship requires both people to be committed to growth, and the other person is not committed to your growth. They are committed to the arrangement staying exactly as it is. So you grieve, and grieving is appropriate. Grieving is necessary. Grieving is how you finally release what never was, so that you can make space for what might be. And what might be This is the promise that keeps you moving forward, even when everything in you wants to return to the familiar trap. What might be is a life where your relationships are chosen rather than obligatory, where your commitments align with your values rather than with your conditioning, where your loyalty is reciprocated and therefore sustainable rather than one-sided and depleting. What might be is the discovery that you are capable of so much more than you believed, that you are stronger than you knew, that you can survive the disapproval and disappointment of others, that you can tolerate uncertainty and build a life on your own terms rather than on the terms dictated by fear and obligation. The path from misplaced loyalty to genuine self-respect is not linear. You will have setbacks. You will revert to old patterns under stress. You will doubt yourself and wonder if you are being too harsh, too selfish, too demanding. You will feel the pull to return to what was familiar even though it was destroying you, because familiarity feels safe even when it is harmful. This is all normal. This is all part of the process. What matters is that you keep returning to the fundamental question: is this loyalty serving life or diminishing it? Is this commitment nourishing me or depleting me? Am I staying because I want to or because I'm afraid to leave? And you answer honestly, even when honesty is uncomfortable, even when honesty requires you to acknowledge things you would prefer to deny. You must also be willing to examine your own role in these dynamics, and this is perhaps the most difficult work of all, because it requires you to acknowledge how you have participated in your own entrapment. No one forced you to remain. No one physically prevented you from leaving or establishing boundaries. You chose this again and again, and while your choice was shaped by conditioning and fear and a genuine, if misguided, sense of loyalty, it was still your choice. This is not about self-blame. This is about recognizing your agency, which is the only path to reclaiming it. As long as you see yourself as purely a victim of circumstance, as long as you locate all the power outside yourself in the people and systems that exploit your loyalty, you remain powerless. But when you acknowledge that you have been choosing this, that you have been colluding in your own diminishment, even if unconsciously, suddenly you have access to a different choice. You can choose differently. Right now, today, in this moment, you can begin to practice a different kind of loyalty. Not the loyalty that abandons you in service of others, but the loyalty that recognizes that you cannot offer genuine care from a place of depletion, that you cannot be present in relationships where your presence is taken for granted, that you cannot build a meaningful life on a foundation of self-betrayal. This loyalty to yourself, this is not selfishness. This is sanity. This is survival. This is the prerequisite for any authentic connection with others, because only when you stop abandoning yourself can you truly show up for others in ways that are sustainable and genuine, rather than resentful and exhausting. And here is what you will find as you practice this new loyalty. You will lose some people. Some relationships will not survive your transformation. Some commitments will need to be released. And this is not failure. This is discernment. This is the natural process of growth, which always involves letting go of what no longer serves in order to make space for what does. You will grieve these losses, and that is appropriate. But you will also experience something you may not have felt in a very long time. You will experience the relief of congruence, of your external life finally matching your internal truth, of no longer performing a version of loyalty that was killing you. You will experience the surprising lightness that comes when you stop carrying relationships that were meant to be mutual partnerships, but had become burdens you bore alone. You will experience the freedom of having energy for things you care about, for relationships that nourish you, for pursuits that matter to you, because that energy is no longer being drained by commitments rooted in fear rather than love. Some of you reading this are afraid that if you release misplaced loyalty, you will become hard, closed off, unable to commit to anything or anyone. You fear that in protecting yourself from exploitation, you will lose your capacity for genuine connection, but this fear is unfounded. What you will lose is your willingness to accept crumbs and call it a feast, your tendency to override your own boundaries in service of keeping peace, your habit of staying in situations that harm you out of some confused sense that enduring harm demonstrates character. What you will gain is discernment, the ability to distinguish between relationships that deserve your loyalty and those that exploit it, between commitments that align with your values and those that serve someone else's agenda at your expense. What you will gain is integrity, the felt sense of living in accordance with your truth, rather than performing a role assigned to you by others or by your own conditioning. What you will gain is the capacity for genuine loyalty, the kind that flows naturally from care rather than being extracted through guilt and obligation. Think about the people in your life who you are loyal to, not because you feel you have to be, but because you want to be. The relationships where your care is met with care, your commitment is matched with commitment, your presence is valued and reciprocated. Notice how different these relationships feel from the ones where your loyalty has become a trap. Notice that in healthy relationships, loyalty does not require you to sacrifice your well-being. It does not demand that you silence your needs or suppress your growth. It allows for both people to flourish, to change, to establish boundaries, to say no when necessary, to take time for themselves, to have a full life beyond the relationship. This is what loyalty looks like when it is genuine, when it is mutual, when it serves life rather than diminishes it. And this is what becomes possible for you when you stop giving your loyalty to people and situations that do not honor it. So return with me now to where we began, to that weight on your chest in the middle of the night, to the relationship or job or obligation that has become a prison you have mistaken for a home. You know now what that weight is. It is not just exhaustion or frustration or disappointment. It is your psyche's way of telling you that something is profoundly wrong, that you are betraying yourself, that the loyalty you are practicing is harming you rather than serving you. And the question is no longer whether this loyalty has become a trap, because you already know the answer to that. The question is whether you are willing to acknowledge it, to sit with what that acknowledgement means, to allow yourself to feel the full weight of how much this has cost you. And then, when you are ready, the question becomes, what now? What choice will you make in this moment, today, tomorrow, in the countless small moments where you have an opportunity to practice loyalty to yourself rather than abandonment of yourself? The answer to that question is yours alone. I cannot tell you when to leave or stay, when to establish boundaries or when to keep trying. These are choices only you can make, and they require you to be honest with yourself in ways that may feel impossible right now. But I can tell you this: you are allowed to prioritize your own well-being. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to leave situations that harm you. You are allowed to establish boundaries even when others object. You are allowed to change your mind about commitments you made when you were different, when you did not yet understand the cost. You are allowed to grow beyond the role you were assigned or the role you assigned yourself. You are allowed to recognize that loyalty without reciprocity is not loyalty at all, but exploitation, wearing the mask of relationship. And you are allowed to choose differently, to practice a kind of loyalty that includes yourself, that honors your needs as much as the needs of others, that recognizes that sustainable relationships require both people to be committed to each other's well-being, not just one person committed to their own sacrifice. This is not easy work. If it were easy, you would have done it already. It requires courage to question the loyalty that has defined you, to risk disappointing people who have relied on your endless availability, to tolerate the uncertainty of not knowing whether you are making the right choice. But the alternative is to remain where you are, to continue sacrificing yourself on the altar of loyalty, to wake up day after day with that weight on your chest and the knowledge that this is your life, this is what you have chosen, and somewhere along the way you forgot that you were allowed to choose differently. So choose. Choose honestly. Choose from a place of truth rather than fear. Choose knowing that some people will not understand, some relationships will not survive, some bridges will burn. And choose also knowing that on the other side of this choice is a life where you are no longer trapped by your own virtue, where loyalty is something you offer freely from a place of fullness rather than something demanded of you from a place of depletion, where you finally understand that the person most deserving of your loyalty, the one you have been betraying all along through your misplaced commitment to others, has always been you.